What we're going to do is enable you to make the most out of LinkedIn by growing your connections. So we're going to talk about why connections are important for LinkedIn and a little bit about how it works during your connections up to all the searches that you might do on LinkedIn. We're going to talk about who you can connect with on LinkedIn and give you some suggestions. But also importantly, we're going to talk about the etiquette of how you actually connect with people on LinkedIn, especially if you're going to be reaching out to people that you don't know that well. We'll also talk about ways to increase your invisibility on LinkedIn so people can find you and link with you, and tell you about the useful resources that will help you after the session today. You can see there on the screen that you've got mine and Vic's LinkedIn profile links there as well. You're very welcome to connect with us after the session today, and we'll give you some top tips during the session today on how best to do that. As we go through the session, Vic is going to be looking after chat, so please feel free to ask your questions as we go through, and what Vic will do is, as we go along, chip in with your questions, so hopefully by the end of it you feel a lot more confident about how to connect with people on LinkedIn and are on your way to really making the most out of this really useful careers tool. So the way that LinkedIn works is you have two elements that you need to get right. The first thing you need to have is a professional looking profile, one that reflects yourself in terms of your interests, in terms of your strengths. And the other thing that you need are connections, because every time you do a search on LinkedIn, it's always based on who you're connected to. So in LinkedIn, you have different degrees of connections. You have your first degree connections, people you're connected directly to. And then you have second degree, and those are the connections of your connections. And then you have third degree, which are connections of connections of connections. So you can see that you can start out with a couple of first degree connections, but then that will give you access to a whole range of other individuals on LinkedIn. And if people are up to 3 degrees of connection away from you, it allows you to see their profile and find out a bit about what they do, where they work. And that is really what makes LinkedIn so helpful if you are a student or a recent graduate who's looking to explore career options. So the thing to do to get LinkedIn to work for you really well is to start by growing those connections, and that's really the focus for today. Now, what we're not going to cover in this session is how to put your profile together in the first place. And what I've got on this slide here are some resources that you might use to do that yourself. So follow the QR code or the bit.ly link there, and it will take you to a page where you can find an online tool which will walk you through setting up a profile from scratch. There's also videos of earlier sessions that we've run on LinkedIn, including one on how to build your profile in quite specific detail. What you also might want to do is look at other people's profiles on LinkedIn for inspiration, maybe see how other people who did your degree program are talking about it. And that might give you suggestions in terms of how you might present your own experience. And LinkedIn itself has a really useful resource called LinkedIn for Students, with lots of advice on how to get the best out of using LinkedIn as a student. What we want to do at the start, though, before we go any further, is just to get an idea of who we have in the room today and what your current level of familiarity with LinkedIn is. So I'm going to launch a little quick poll. Okay, so the first poll has 2 questions. First of all, what's your current level of confidence with using LinkedIn? And also, how many connections do you currently have on LinkedIn? So I'll give you a couple of seconds just to fill that in, and then we can get an idea of how what stage you're at. Okay, so I can see that quite a lot of you are brand new to LinkedIn, so fantastic for finding it. It's one of those media tools which has become a lot more prominent in recent years, and it's one of those things that people say, oh, you've got to be on LinkedIn, but they never tell you why, and that's why we run these sessions, to show you why it's a valuable tool. And I can also see a lot of you fall into that other group where you get a profile, you set it up, and then you think, now what do I do with it? And again, that's the reason why we're running these sessions today. And also down here I can see how many of you have different kind of connections on LinkedIn. I can see that most of you are just getting started. You've got fewer than 10 connections there, and then some of you got 10 to 25. Our advice would be to try to aim to get at least 35 to 50 connections, because when you start to do that, it really starts to grow your network and you'll start to see an awful lot more. If you've only got a couple of connections, then when you do searches, you're going to encounter the situation where LinkedIn tells you that you're not in somebody's network and things are pixelated. But it's very easy to get beyond that stage by connecting with people that you already know. So we'll bear this in mind as we go through the rest of the session this afternoon. So I'm just going to close down that poll and move on. Okay. So what you need to know about connecting on LinkedIn is that it's a professional social media site. And so there's certain advice we'll give you to do it in the right way, so you have the right impact and give the right impression. The first thing you need to do before you start connecting with people on LinkedIn, and certainly people that you may not know that well, is to ensure that your profile looks professional and it looks finished. So you don't have to fill it all in, but what's filled in needs to look finished, so you haven't got any kind of obvious half completed sections. It's important to have a photograph of yourself on there, an appropriate photograph, so not the kind of thing you might have on Facebook, which might be a holiday snap. You want a headshot that looks like you on most days with a nice neutral background, and also to make sure that the photo fits most of the frame, because lots of people will look at LinkedIn on their phone. So you, a tiny person in the distance in a big field, isn't going to look that good. You want to make sure that your headline is accurate. So your headline in LinkedIn is what you see directly under your name in your profile. It often pre-fills automatically. So lots of you are probably students at the University of Manchester. Some of you might be an assistant at Sainsbury's. That's something that you can edit and change to make it reflect what you're doing now. You also want to proofread your profile to make sure it looks good and looks, not sloppy. Because then again, that's going to encourage people that you're someone who's taking this seriously and someone who's worth connecting with. The second thing you want to do is really think about curating your online presence too, because they might look at your profile on LinkedIn, but then maybe if you've got an unusual name, a bit like my name, very easy to find on the internet. So you want to make sure that when they find you, they're impressed by what you see. So be careful about what comments you make, who you follow, what groups you join. So again, it shows that you're taking it professionally and seriously. What you also need to do when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn is to add a note to your connection request. And we're going to really focus on this today, because this is the bit where it really helps to get it right. It's very easy on LinkedIn just to hit connect all over the show. And all that does is send a very generic message, which isn't very impressive or engaging. And we're going to show you how to do that in a really productive way. You also need, when you connect with people, to give them a reason to connect with you. You might already have people approaching you saying, will you join my network? And saying nothing else. Then you might think, well, but why? Why do you want to connect with me? And that's what people are going to think when you connect with them. So drawing connections between you and them, maybe they did a similar degree, or how you might know each other. Maybe you went to a careers event and they presented and you were impressed by what they saw. But giving them a reason to connect with you is as important to getting that connection request right, and to give them more chance of connecting with you. What you might want to do in that note is maybe ask for advice or guidance that might lead to a future call or meeting. But what you're never going to do is go straight and ask for a job. You wouldn't walk down Oxford Road in real life and come to a complete stranger and go, hi, my name's Suzanne, can I have a job? So don't do it online, because it's just exactly the same kind of thing. And finally, sometimes when you connect with people on LinkedIn, they don't respond. And that might be not because they're ignoring you, but because they don't actually go on LinkedIn that much. Or they might not want to connect with you, and if that's their decision. So whatever happens, be polite about it. Don't send them stroppy text to follow it up. You might want to just prod them again just to check in case they were going to respond but didn't. But be polite and be professional. And on the very, very rare occasions somebody says, why do you want to connect with me? Don't retaliate, just cut your losses and find somebody else who's a bit more, engaging and willing to get involved. So How do you connect the right way? What do you need to do? So as I said, on LinkedIn, there's lots of places where you connect with people. So when you first go into LinkedIn and do a search, you'll find, as you can see on this page here, that you'll have options to hit a connect button here. So there's Vic on this list here. Now, if I hit connect here, all that happens is it sends a message that says, "Hi, Vic, I'd like to join your LinkedIn network." And that's it. Okay. And from my point of view, it doesn't even say please. And it's a bit presumptive. It's like, well, why do you want to join my network? How have you found me? It's not really adding anything. So unless that person knows you really well and goes, "Hey, yeah, hi, Suzanne, I'll connect with you," they might just ignore you. So you need to make it a lot more compelling. There's also another place where if you hit connect, it does the same thing and sends that spammy message. And that's if you go into your network part of LinkedIn and it shows you people you might know. And again, it's got connect buttons. Again, if you choose connect from here, it just sends that same generic, boring message. So what you need to do is to connect from within somebody's profile page on LinkedIn, because what that will do will enable you to add that magic note, that magic message. So find somebody's homepage. So here's Vic, picking on Vic today. And what you need to do is choose connect here. And what will happen is you'll get the option to add a note. And this is where you can actually introduce yourself and explain why you've got an interest in connecting with that individual. And you've got up to 300 characters there. So you have got a spare, it's not like Twitter, you have actually got a bit of space there to actually present yourself in a professional way. But that does mean it will enable you to actually approach somebody in a nice, friendly way. Now, my top tip is, even if you're connecting with somebody you already know, get into the habit of adding a message. First of all, it's nice just to say to somebody, "Hi, I've just found you on LinkedIn, isn't it ace? Do you want to connect?" It's just a nice, friendly thing to do, isn't it? Rather than just hitting connect, connect, connect. But also it helps you so that when you come to connect with other people who maybe you don't know quite so well, you already have a good habit. Now, you can also connect with people by using the mobile version of LinkedIn as well. And you need to take care when you do it by phone. So when you open up the page on your phone to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, what you're never going to do is just choose the connect button, because again, that sends that "Hi, will you join my network" message, which we've already agreed isn't very impressive. What you're going to do instead is select more, which gives you the option here to personalize your invite, and then you can go to town and just say why you want to connect with them. So I'm just going to pause here for a moment in case there are any questions that might have come through. Anything so far, Vic? No. Okay, right. So let's carry on and move on to the next slide. So you found somebody you want to connect with, you want to send them a message. What on earth are you going to say? Perhaps you don't know where to start. So what we thought we'd do is give you some cut and paste text that you can adapt to your own purposes. And it also illustrates the ways that you might actually want to connect with somebody. So say, for example, you're thinking about applying for a placement or a graduate scheme or a job, and you want to get a bit of inside information about it. You could find one of our graduates who maybe are on the scheme at Mars and just ask them if they could offer some advice for you. So that could be a nice way of connecting with somebody. Perhaps that you're trying to get ideas, maybe studying English Lit and you've no idea what to do next, but you've just found out that somebody who did that degree is working in the media and you think, actually, I'd like to do that too. Again, you could use that as the reason. So you're establishing, as we said, that connection between that person and you're asking for advice and support, something that it's within their remit to provide for you. Maybe somebody's mentioned that, "Oh, hey, if you're interested in doing this, you should have a chat to so-and-so." So again, it's showing that mutual connection. You're not a complete stranger, just connecting them at random, but you know somebody else who suggested that they might like to have a conversation with you. But also showing that you've done a bit of research, you've read their blog post and you'd like to connect with them. Again, the more personalised and specific and tailored you make the message, the more likely people are to connect with you. Here's another example here. Let me just get this little square out of the way. So again, somebody that you might have known at college, you know, I hope this message finds you well. How have you been? I'm thinking about consultancy. I can see you did an internship at KPMG. It would be great to reconnect. That could be a reason to connect with somebody. Or perhaps even somebody you've worked with in a part-time job, because, you know, we all know as students, you know, we might be doing a degree in philosophy, but at the end of the day, we might have a part-time job in somewhere not quite so glamorous. So maybe you find someone who you worked together with at McDonald's when you were at college before you came to uni, and you can see they're doing a similar kind of degree. Again, that's another good reason to connect with somebody as well. So again, it's about just kind of being specific, being friendly, being professional, but most importantly is about making those connections with people. Okay, any questions so far, Vic? Okay.
Yeah, we've got a few questions that have come through. So the first one, I'm not entirely sure of the answer. Suze, you might know. I don't think there is, but is there a way of sending a message retrospectively? Someone accidentally pressed the connect button without adding a message for someone they really want to connect with, because it just says pending, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. But there are a couple of options I can think about. You might try and find the person in the real world, because just because it's on LinkedIn doesn't mean you have to stay on LinkedIn. And you might maybe find them on social media, on Facebook. You might find an email address. The other thing you can consider doing is everything we're showing you here today, you can do on LinkedIn with a free profile. But what you can also do is get a premium profile. And my top tip is to get a trial premium profile, which lasts a couple of weeks. Cancel it straight away so you don't get clobbered for the fee. Because if you do that, you're allowed to send what are called in-mail messages. So you can follow up with a message to say, hi, you might notice I just sent you a connection request and I omitted to send some information. I just thought to follow up with a bit more information. Apart from which, you get more than 30 characters to do that as well. You just need to remember to cancel it straight away because you don't need to be paying that kind of money unless you're going to be living on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Another couple of questions that have come in. So the first one, this is a great question, which is, does it look unprofessional if I connect with a recruiter for a job that I just applied to? And the answer to that is absolutely not. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what LinkedIn is for. So if you've applied for a job, connect with the recruiter, because that means that they don't only get the information that you've put in your job application, they can also see what is hopefully the even more comprehensive picture of who you are, what you've been doing on your LinkedIn profile. So absolutely, it's not unprofessional, it's professional. It's what you should do. So go ahead and do that.
Can I just interrupt there?
Yes, go on, yeah.
I was going to say as well as you know, kind of connecting with the recruiter, always follow the company as well, because that way, if they've got any kind of news and views going on, you get to see it. But also some companies, if you apply for a job with them and you're all over LinkedIn and you're not following them, they might question how keen you are. So always connect with people and companies that you're interested with on LinkedIn. Because as we said earlier, it's about curating your presence on LinkedIn. If you're genuinely interested in working in a sector, are you actually following companies in that sector? Are you in groups in that sector? Is that reflected on your profile? You need to kind of, you know, present yourself holistically.
Another question, do my number of connections, so less than 500, seem to be a negative thing to a job recruiter?
No. Ultimately, your network is yours to curate. You can connect with as many or as few people as you like. So some people will have lots of connections and some people will have few. But what you'll find is that some of your connections are those super connectors. So when you're starting to connect with people, identify those individuals, because you'll supercharge your network by having one connection who's got 500 connections, because they all become your second degree connections. So really, to get a good kind of experience on LinkedIn, you do have to have that kind of minimum number of around 35 to 50. But beyond that, it's very much up to you how you manage that network. And you'll find that it will grow as you kind of go through your degree, and also as you exit university and enter your professional field.
Another couple, thanks, Sue. Should I disable my who's viewing your profile feature? Because it might cause a bit of a too much into stalking type thing?
It depends on you. I tend to have mine switched off because often I'm just using LinkedIn with students and I'll be looking at all sorts of random profiles. But if I am looking to connect with a recruiter because I want them to come in to talk to students, I will do it visibly so they can see I've visited their site. It's very much up to you. You know, LinkedIn's great because you can explore what people do after their degree and really get loads of career ideas. So at that stage, you might be just using it for information. But if you are interested in connecting with them, do it visibly and out in the open, because I think that gives a much better impression.
We've got one final question in the chat at the moment, and then someone who's raised their hand. So I'll just go with the question in the chat first. Is it possible to write such detailed, personalised messages within the word and character limit? It's very much a lesson in writing concisely, is it, Suzanne?
It is, yeah. Keep it simple. And as I said, you might use these examples here just as almost like a little kind of model answer, which you can just adapt to your
they all fit.
But keep it pithy. That's the thing. Keep it as concise and precise as possible. But, you know, the benefit of LinkedIn is that, yes, you can connect with people on LinkedIn, but it also shows where people live in the real world as well. So you might actually reach out to somebody off LinkedIn as well. And then you might have a chance to maybe expand upon what you want to do. But in the first instance, you can use 300 characters quite effectively to craft really engaging messages.
Thanks, Suze. We've got one raised hand. Would you like to ask your question? Just ask you to unmute. Unless you've done it accidentally. Amin?
Okay, well, if you want to...
If you want to type it in, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we'll get to that. Okay, so let's move forward a little bit more. Okay, so some tips, first of all, with networking. Networking is one of those things that scares the life out of lots of people, and I must admit, me included, but it's one of those things which is worth persevering with because he's so useful. And sometimes putting yourself in a situation where you're, you know, a little bit kind of unease, being brave, sometimes opens up amazing doors. So if you do decide to reach out to some people, here's just some ideas of ways of connecting with those people and taking that connection further. So, you know, when asking for a meeting, make it easy for someone to say yes. So just like a 10-minute call on Zoom, and also, you know, you can start to think about your questions in advance before you prep for it, maybe give them some ideas on what you're interested in. The most important thing is if you call a meeting with somebody is that you are in charge of setting the agenda. So you can't just have a meeting and sit there and expect them to talk at you. They'll want to know, well, what do you want to know about my job? What do you know about what I've done with my degree? And the thing is that people love to talk about themselves. It's their number one specialist subject. Sometimes the trick is jutting them up. But when they're talking along, you know, smile and nod, be curious, and you'll get their view of their job and their life and their decisions. And you might think, yeah, I agree with that. Or you might think, well, actually, you don't like that, but I think I might. But what it will is give you information to think about, to reflect upon, to help you to make decisions. And the other thing to do as well, especially if you're a bit nervous, is practice introducing yourselves. We call this an elevator pitch. There are some really good kind of tips on how to do it on YouTube. So just practice introducing yourself to a complete stranger. And then you can have it tucked away. And it's really useful as well when you go to interviews and they say, so tell me about yourself, because you can just pull it out and introduce yourself in a nice, clear, interesting way. So it's about focusing as well on your contact career rather than your own ambitions, because you want to use that time to find out about them. You know, they might have very different kind of experiences in life, but there might be lessons there you can draw which will help you. So be open to what other people have done, because there might be more there than you think to help you with your career decisions. And also, again, about being polite and being professional. Follow up with people afterwards and say, thank you, I really enjoyed our conversations yesterday. It's been really helpful. Or you might even follow up with something that you found which you think they might be interesting, but that keeps the door open and they leave thinking, oh, that person was really nice. And it's a really small world. And, you know, Murphy's Law is that you'll meet that person in the future. And it's so nice if they remember you for positive reasons. And remember, at this stage, it's always asking for information and not really a job. It might be ideas about how you might go about finding work, but it's not kind of have a placement with you. You know, that there are ways of presenting that more effectively. So we've told you how to connect with people the right way, within the profile, adding a message. Who can you connect with? So a really good exercise at the start of this whole process is to think about who my current connections are. And what you might want to do is even go old school and just write it out on a piece of paper with you in the middle and start to think about who you know. And you can connect with anybody on LinkedIn. You don't have to just connect with people on your degree program or in your area of interest. You can connect with your friends, current students on your course. You're all students now. 3-4 years time you won't be, you'll be professionals. So it's good to kind of keep hold of those people at this stage and grow that network for after you graduate. It could be people that you live with, people you lived in hall with last year, people that you might know who've gone to different universities doing different courses, family members. There's always somebody in your family who's really good on LinkedIn. They're a great person to connect with. People you've worked with, your neighbours, university staff and career staff. We connect with students within the schools that we support. We're happy to do that. It might also be people that you've met in extracurricular activities. So if you find somebody on LinkedIn who you know, no matter what they do, connect with them, because they might do a degree subject completely different from yours, but they'll know people perhaps who have interests similar to yours. And it always works out. It's always the last person on earth you talk to about your career options who has a great connection, you know, so it's a good way. And that's the great thing about the way LinkedIn works is you seed it with your network, and then it shows you everybody, all your contacts know without you having to ask them all individually. And that it makes it so enabling in terms of using networking to inform your career decisions and to find people you can connect with. So make sure at the very least you connect with everybody you already know. But then the other exciting thing is all the people you don't know yet. So if you go to careers events, you might be sat next to us when we get back in real life again, or if you're in a breakout room, you might be somebody who's got similar interests to you. You might connect with them on LinkedIn, or our alumni who come into our Meet Professional sessions, and we've got some of those coming up over the next few weeks. They're always really keen to engage with students because they know what it was like. Some of them are only a year or 2 years out of uni. And so you might want to connect with them and say, you know, I really enjoyed meeting you at the Meet Professional session or hearing about your career. It would be really great if you could connect with me. It could also be connecting with employers that you might come across at fairs and workshops. And lots of our employers are very open to connecting with students as well. It might be at professional events you get involved with. So maybe if you're doing engineering and you've joined, I don't know, the iChemie, for example, the Institute of Chemical Engineering or whatever, you might go to an online event and then you might connect with someone who presented there. You might connect with other people you come across at other insight events. You know, really, you know, you can connect with anybody. It's thinking about who you've met and then making that connection with them. So people who are on LinkedIn and people who you find who are on LinkedIn as well. So really, it's you've got lots and lots of options to actually grow that network. So although 35 to 50 sounds daunting, once you actually start to get on with it, it's a lot more easy than you think. Do we have any questions that have come up? Okay, so we're going to move forward. And I'm going to show you this amazing tool. Now, we're doing a couple of LinkedIn sessions over the next few weeks, and we're going to look at the alumni search tool in the session next week around looking for jobs and getting career inspiration. But the alumni tool on LinkedIn is a really useful way to access the Manchester network, the people who are in your network because you are currently studying at Manchester University or because they've studied there in the past. And there are over 230,000 now University of Manchester alumni on LinkedIn. And you've got that one thing in common with them, that you're at the university. You maybe walked down Oxford Road, been in the same rooms, been in the same queues at Pret's, depending if you're feeling flushed that day. So I'm going to show you how to use the LinkedIn alumni search to identify people who did your degree course, because it's a really awesome tool. So I'm just going to click on this link here, and hopefully it will take me into LinkedIn. Perfect. So on LinkedIn, people have profiles, but so do organisations and companies and also universities. And this is the University of Manchester's LinkedIn page. So when you go into it, you've got an option for alumni. And oh, it's actually gone up actually since last week. It's nearly 240,000. It's a massive growing net. It's one of the biggest networks on LinkedIn for a university. And what it does is it allows you to filter according to where people live, where they work, what they do, what they studied, what they're good at, and how you know them. And you can also look for when they attended the university, or just put a search term in there. So I am going to today pick history. No, I'm not. I'm going to pick chemical engineering. And I'll tell you why I've done that in a minute, and not history. So I'm going to put in here chemical engineering. Okay, so immediately that's brought my list down to just under 9,000 people who've got the phrase chemical engineering in their profile. So to refine it further, I'm going to choose people who studied chemical engineering, rather than maybe just do a bit of a module in it, or maybe they work for a chemical engineering firm but work in HR. Okay, now the reason I don't put history in there is that lots of people might have done history in lots of different contexts. You might do a degree in history, you might do a module on the history of science and medicine if you're a biological scientist, you might have done history A level. So sometimes the results are a bit random. And so what you might want to do is maybe put in other kind of search terms which allow you to find specific degree profiles. But anyway, so once you start to kind of narrow it down to the degree that you want, you can see a bit more. So you can see where they work. So I'm going to pick United Kingdom, but you can see that LinkedIn's a very international network and our alumni are very international. So you can find people across the world. There's one caveat with that, because when you go into LinkedIn, you set up your location. And if you never change it, it stays on that location. So if you leave Manchester University and go and work in London or Paris or Hong Kong, change your location so that people know where you are. Okay. So you can see where people work. So we can see of the 166 people doing chemical engineering, 166 at the University of Manchester, they might be doing PhDs, for example, or maybe members of staff, but we can see the companies in which they work. So if you're thinking, I'm doing chemical engineering, where could I work? Well, there you go, some examples there. So say, for example, I'm thinking about working within a petroleum company, or so I might click ExxonMobil. It then shows me who those individuals are. And if they're in my network, I can see who they are. So second degree means that I know someone who knows that person. And because of that, I can see their profile. So I can go in there and find out a bit more about what they did, how they got into that job, what experience they might have got as a student. And then I might decide maybe to reach out to them. So I'd go into their profile. And then if I thought that I might want to connect with that individual, again, click connect within the profile and add the message. So I'm going to leave it there for the alumni tool. I don't know if Vic wants to add anything, but again, that's a really helpful tool to help to start to build your network.
Thanks, Suze. Yeah, no, nothing to add on that, but we've just had a question. It might be good just to stay on LinkedIn for a second, because it's about a specific section. It's about the recommendations section, and a first year undergraduate student asking who they should ask for recommendations from, considering everything's been online, their professors don't really know them, and neither do mentors from Spring Insight internship. So who do you ask? I mean, my first take would be that you don't have to have recommendations on there at this stage, and it might be worth looking back to say somebody who you worked for in a part-time job, for instance, or something like that. But Suzanne, what's your take on that?
Okay, I think there's two things. First of all, the first thing I'd say is that there's endorsements and recommendations, and they both have a use and purpose on LinkedIn. So I've just brought up Chris's profile. Chris is one of our graduates. He's currently a student doctor, but he did biological sciences about 5 or 6 years ago. And he's a good example of the fact that when you first leave uni, your first job doesn't define you, because he's had 3 different graduate jobs before he became a graduate student doctor. But I'm going to go down his profile here just to show you a couple of things to get this right. Now, with LinkedIn, to get the most out of it, you have to have an active profile. And that means that you don't just set up the world's best profile, then just leave it. You need to interact with it. You need to look on LinkedIn. You might need to update it. You might want to react to what other people might post on LinkedIn. Because the way LinkedIn works, it has algorithms that identifies active users because they got a lot of their revenue from recruitment. And so if I'm an employer looking for potential hires and I find somebody, LinkedIn want to be sure that that person is actually active on LinkedIn and not a dead profile. So if you're active, you will appear further up searches. And endorsements and recommendations are two things that allow you to appear higher on searches. Now, endorsements, this is where you add, skills endorsements is where you add your skills and abilities. So the first thing you need to do is always add in all the skills that you've got and be very, very specific. Go down to a micro level. Don't put communication, put presentation, report writing, negotiation. If you are doing a technical degree, don't just put lab skills, be specific and list your techniques because employers will search for those when they're looking for people to hire. But when you have on here things that you're good at, you can get people to endorse you for it, to say, yeah, that person's good at that. Now, you can go mad endorsing all your friends, which is all well and good, but how impressive is your friend? I mean that in the nicest possible way. You know, you could be a lovely person, but if you're a first-year student, you know, that's not going to say for much. But what you can do is maybe approach people you maybe work with in your part-time jobs to endorse you because they've seen you in action. But again, that helps to show that this is something which you have a good skill at. So maybe if you're involved with a society and someone endorses you for communication skills and they can see that actually you do presentations to that society, that makes it legitimate. So there's endorsements, which are just like almost like putting a like or a thumbs up for that skill on your profile. Now, the other thing is recommendations here. And what you can do with recommendations is you can solicit them. And these are things which you don't have to have on your profile for it to be successful, but which you might want to get. So maybe you, in a part-time job, did a really good kind of task of your own initiative that was really helpful and your manager was really grateful and they're on LinkedIn. What your recommendation is just a few words to say, you did really well at that. So I gave Chris one because he did me a favour when he was an intern, quid pro quo, and also because he was genuinely really helpful. So right now, you might not actually think of people that you might want to put recommendations on, but have it in the back of your mind for future. So when you're getting work experience or working on projects or doing a placement, you could perhaps, you know, solicit recommendations off those individuals. And also you can recommend other people as well. So you might be in a position on your course, maybe you're a postgrad, you've got some experience already, where you might actually want to recognise somebody for their contribution as well. Is there anything you want to add before we move on?
No, I think that covers everything.
Cool, okay.
I hope that answered your question to the person asking a question.
Perfect, okay, so let me just whip back to the slides. And the final bit, which is really, we talked about all the different ways that you can reach out and connect with people on LinkedIn. But to make LinkedIn work well, it's being part of the LinkedIn community, because as we've said, the more active you are, the more visible you are, and that will attract people to connect with you. So when you go onto LinkedIn, you have a homepage and you have a feed, which is populated depending on what you do on LinkedIn. So the sites you might have visited, people that you are connected with, companies that you might follow. And what you can do on that page is maybe like posts that people put on there, because again, that gives you an active tick for the algorithm. But you can also post updates yourself. So maybe during lockdown, you've been doing some free online courses and you might want to say that I've just done this online course and it was really interesting about sustainability. And that could be a way of showing what you're doing, and people might like that. And people might recognise your name and go, oh, I didn't know she was on here, I'm going to connect with her. But also employers might see that and see that you're really serious about that career area and about developing yourself and being active. You might share an article that's important to you. Follow some companies, as we said, that's a great way to get the news on your homepage. There are lots of groups as well you can get involved with. And in the session next week, we're going to talk more about how you can use LinkedIn to explore options and to find jobs. But it does make a huge difference. I'm just going to nip back to LinkedIn and just show you my home feed to show you how it works. So I'm going to go to home here. And you can see here that this is a company that I follow because I support biological science students at the university. I'm interested in kind of healthcare and pharmaceuticals. So they're posting on there things that they do. If I just say like, immediately I get a few points on the LinkedIn kind of algorithm. But again, that in itself would be interesting for me to kind of know about. I might then respond to that to say, yeah, that's a really interesting article. Thanks for posting it. Events might appear on that list for you. So like Elizabeth here is talking about how can a PhD lead you to be Inspiration of the Year, and you might think, hey, I might want to get involved with that. So you can really start to kind of curate a presence. You can make use of that list, but you can also add to it. And there are plenty of students that I am connected with who post things on there about what they're doing. And again, that's a great way just to be part of this whole community and add value to it. But as I said, being active is what makes a big difference. And you might attract people to connect with you without you having to reach out to them. Okay, so any questions? Cool. Okay, let's crack on then. So next steps. Oh, one question is there? You're on mute, Vic.
Sorry, I muted and then unmuted and then muted again. Presumably posting a comment carries more weight than just liking an article in the LinkedIn algorithms.
It does, yes. Yeah. If you want to get down to if you're a bit of a data hound, want to get down to the nitty gritty and like working systems, and then you can really work the system. And the other thing to say as well is with LinkedIn, it is impossible to get 100% complete profile. You can't do it. Just aim to make it as full as you can. You're never going to get that extra 1%. So anyway, so next steps. Be connected, connect with everybody you already know. That is the bare minimum what you need to do. But be curious and use alumni search to explore other people that you might connect with, as well as other possibilities for your degree options and your career options after your degree. As I said, if you need to work on your profile, we have that self-serve resource on our website. The QR code's there for it as well. And also we've got some sessions coming up you might want to kind of tap into. So next week we have a session on how you can use LinkedIn to explore opportunities and find jobs. So, really taking the next step with using LinkedIn as a career tool. And also we have a further section in May, which is about using all sorts of social media to boost your job search as well. And over the next few weeks, there are a number of meet the professionals sessions which are coming up as well, because we said that a good thing to do might be to connect with people that you hear from at those sessions. And these are brilliant opportunities because often attending those sessions are recent graduates or friends of the university who work in different areas of work and want to kind of just talk to students about what they do, because they know how hard it is. They're not that far away since they were sat where you were sat, and to tell you about what they do about in their careers and how they got there and really share advice. It's a really great way to really get personal insight into how you get into certain kind of jobs. It's a very informal setting. You can ask all sorts of questions in small groups. And as I said, it's a great way to start to build your network of career supporters and your connections on LinkedIn. There are a number coming up and across various areas. They're all open to any degree discipline. We have some on banking and finance, marketing, public sector careers, and working in the legal sector, whether you're doing a law degree or not, and also one for international students. And as well as these that we've got in April, look out for these sessions through the year because some are running specific schools and discipline areas as well. But again, that's a really nice way to start practicing your networking skills, but also getting the information you need to make good, sound career decisions. And I just wanted to also talk a little bit about equality, diversity, inclusion. And I'm going to hand over to Vic here because that's one of the areas that she's really passionate about, because the career service isn't just here for a small group of people, we're here for everybody.
Thanks, Suzanne. Yes, so as it says on the slide, that we know that not everybody has the same experience of accessing career support or recruitment processes. So we are here to support you. We have a page, and I'm going to put...
Sorry, you're on mute.
Oh my goodness, we've been doing this a year. Okay, so we know that not all students will have the same experience of career support or recruitment processes, and there might be things that you are concerned about. So we're here to support you with that. There's a link that I've just put in the chat, which is also there on the slide, which is to our equality and diversity pages. But the key things to know are, from a positive side, a lot of employers are very, very committed now to the merits of having a diverse workforce. They understand their obligations to have a diverse workforce, to reduce gender pay gaps and increase the diversity of their board level and their graduate recruits. So there are a lot of companies that have schemes in place to help to diversify their workforce. So that might be summer internships that are specific for people from a particular background or who meet particular criteria. That's all on that page. Or it might be that there's additional support available for you, either from the career service or directly from recruiters. So that's all. You can find all of that on that link there. If anyone has any questions about that, please feel free to pop them in the chat. There have been a few questions come in the last couple of minutes that we could look at now. Is that okay, Suze?
Yeah, good.
Okie doke. So the next question that came in was, how frequently should we post on LinkedIn?
I think as frequently as you want to. It's one of those things where some of you maybe won't post much on there at all, but you'll use it as a source of information. You'll maybe contact people in your network. You might like post some things, and there's others of you who will really get into it. And actually, for some career areas, say you're interested in any kind of communication or marketing role or anything where you're dealing with very kind of current information, it's a really useful resource to establish yourself professionally within that arena. And you'll find there's certain groups of sectors who are really highly represented on LinkedIn. So maybe get an insight into that by looking at other people and seeing what they post on there, and you'll soon work out whether this is the kind of sector where it's really present on LinkedIn. But really, as much as you want to be comfortable doing, but I would always say have a go. You might try it once and might decide, okay, I posted once, but I think it's something I don't want to do all the time, because there are other social media profiles. You might also be on Twitter, and actually you can link your Twitter feed to your LinkedIn feed, to your LinkedIn account as well. So there's things you can do there if you are a bit of a social media diva. There's ways of doing that. Obviously, make sure your other social media accounts are as professional as your LinkedIn account, though. That goes without saying. What do you think, Vic?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all of the time. But that's just down to the way that I work and the fact that I support a lot of students who are trying to move into the media and arts type sectors, and that's the kind of industry where people are very present on LinkedIn. The hidden job market is strong, where jobs aren't always advertised, and kind of freelance opportunities are advertised via social media. So I spend a lot of time on there to share things with students. I do a lot. So particularly if you're a humanities student, particularly within drama, music, languages, media, interested in media, publishing, then please do connect with me. I will definitely accept your request because I share things all the time. But yeah, it really is a very personal thing. I think Suzanne's suggestion to look at people who are doing the kind of thing that you aspire to do and see how often they post. You could start off by maybe, sharing things from people who you admire, who are doing things that you want to do, and that will start to give you an idea of how frequently you might want to be on there to maximize the use of it.
Okay. So
yeah, there are a couple more.
Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing now so that we can just be face to face instead. Okay,
yeah.
So let me just stop sharing. Cool. Okay.
So this one was just asking about whether the slides will be available, and the fact that a lot of stuff that we've covered, because it's been linked to questions, isn't on the slides. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded. So once it's been kind of processed and uploaded, it will be available on our YouTube channel. you'll be able to access that, the full recording, so you can watch this back as many times as you should wish to. The next bit is, should we list the individual course modules taken at the university under the courses section? And that's 8 to 9 per year, so a lot. That is a lot. It's more about listing your degree and then maybe picking out things that are specifically related to the type of jobs that you're looking for, particularly if there's a practical skill element. You can also add that, as Suzanne said earlier, into the skills section where people can endorse you. So that might be a better place to put it, or in your profile area at the top, if there are things that you know are particularly sought after by employers, you can put them there as well. But I would say it might be a bit overwhelming for a recruiter to read through every module you've done.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, your profile isn't a CV. You don't have to list absolutely everything. You can really, pick what you want to share with them, the things that reflect what those interests might be. So, or you can pull through modules that you may have to do, unless you're really passionate about them. You don't have to list them at all. Again, it's about the context. So what have you gained from that? What did you learn about that? Why did you choose that module? That makes LinkedIn different from a CV, which is just like a flat document. A LinkedIn profile, good LinkedIn profile should sound like you, and show your engagement and your excitement for what you do.
Yeah. This is an interesting question. What if, it sounds like this is an experience somebody might have had. What if some working professional I don't know asks me to tell more about my degree, but then never replies to my reply? Is this common on LinkedIn, or should I have done something differently to make them reply?
It is a bit of an odd one. I would perhaps try and track them down in the real world, but also, I think with any kind of social media sort of site, it's about being wary and being, think when people approach you, in the same way if somebody rings you up on your phone, you don't immediately assume that person is, someone who's got your best interests at heart. So be a little bit savvy about what you share with them. On your LinkedIn profile, you can share as much or as little as you like. You're in control of that. So only share what you're comfortable with doing. But the rule stands, doesn't it? If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So just be, and again, if you have got questions about that, you can talk to us here at the Careers. We have a chat box on our website where it's staffed from 10 till 4 every weekday, and you can ask a real person, I've just had this approach on LinkedIn, I'm not sure what to do. We're always there to help you with questions like this.
Yeah, definitely. And yes, we have a winner of the first person in the session to connect with me on LinkedIn. So congratulations to that person who's already just sent me a LinkedIn request. Well done. And then where can we list the events we've got? For example, an Amazon AWS Pub Summit, hackathons, things like that. So those kind of extracurricular but kind of career related activities, where should they go?
I think there's various places you can put it. You could put it under sometimes courses attended. So you might also want to put it in the about section. If you've not filled in your about section on your LinkedIn profile, you need to do it, because that's a bit where you can explain yourself to the world, because every profile's got exactly the same structure. So you're all going to start with experience, which might be your part-time job. So the about section is your chance to talk about what you're about, what you're engaged in, what you've done. So again, it's about, there's no right or wrong way for lots of these things. I mean, if you do courses on FutureLearn, I think it sticks it in at there's an achievement section where it kind of allocates it automatically. I know that when I did a course on that, that's what it did with it. But it's where it fits best is where you need to list it. There's no hard or fast rule on doing that. Maybe look at other people's profiles. Maybe you've got some friends who are all over LinkedIn, and just see where it seems to look best on there.
And another one about the Meet the Professionals events, definitely really, really good idea to go to those. Will you be given a list of companies from which there will be representative beforehand, or do we go in blind? I've just checked on Career Connect and they are listed on there. So if you go into Career Connect to register to attend the Meet the Professionals events, so there are several, you have to register for them individually. If you go into the information about the event, then the companies that will be represented are there, so you can go and do your research.
Yeah, what they tend to do is, as far as possible, is maybe send people who have signed up a handout before the event, which shows you who's attending and a bit of a biography. But also in the session itself, that's usually loaded to chat as well, so you can kind of have a quick look, so that you've got a bit of an insight. And also at the start of each session, each person will introduce themselves to you, so you'll be able to kind of clock a bit about each person before you actually get a chance to talk to them in groups. And that's the thing, you're talking to them in groups. It's not just you and a complete stranger. You're there with 5 other people. And so if you're a little bit shy about it, you know, you can see what the people ask and then kind of build your confidence and ask your own questions.
I think that is, oh, no, the rest of them are just lovely thank you messages.